in the textile industry, handicraft, and the production of other articles of trade. India used to trade with the entire world. But British economic and trade policies drained India of her wealth. Thus began the economic exploitation of India. The majority of the Indians lived in villages. They depended on agriculture for their sustenance. Articles of their day-to-day requirements were produced in the village itself. The local craftsman was the backbone of Indian economic system. This situation changed under the British rule. Now let's learn about the decline of the textile industry. The textile industry was the largest industry in India. Textiles produced in India were very popular in Europe. They were in great demand in Europe. The British imposed heavy taxes on the Indian textile industry so that textiles manufactured in England would be sold in India. Therefore, the Indian textiles became expensive while the British textiles were cheap. Due to this policy of the British, the once prosperous Indian textile industry was ruined. Skilled artisans and weavers lost their livelihood. Relegation of other industries. In 1853, the British started the railways in India. Gradually, the network of railways spread all over India. With this, the British goods reached every nook and corner of the country. The local artisans could not compete with the machine-made foreign goods. As a result, the Indian industry and trade were wiped out. Impoverishment of peasants. Earlier, land revenue was the main source of government income, and it was paid in the form of grain. But now, the British forced the peasants to pay land revenue in cash. It had to be paid on time. No concessions were made. The peasants had no cash to pay the land revenue. Hence, they had to mortgage their land and borrow money from money-lenders. If they failed to repay the debt, they were forced to sell their lands. The British forced the peasants to cultivate only those crops which were in demand abroad and did not allow them to grow other crops. Therefore, peasants had to cultivate cash crops like cotton, tobacco, indigo, etc. Cash crops are crops that fetch money. The British merchants brought the cash crops at very low prices and sold them at higher prices. The peasants were thus exploited. Let's study about reforms undertaken by the British. Though the British exploited India economically, they introduced some reforms for their administrative convenience, which indirectly led to some benefits. The railway network spread all over India. Facilities of transport, like the railways, led to greater interactions among Indians. Government officers were appointed at the village, taluka, district and provincial levels. With the appointment of officers like the talati, police patil, collector and judge, a permanent administrative system was created. Schools imparting Western education were started. Therefore, Western ideas began to spread in India. Printing presses were started, and newspapers and books on different subjects were published. This inspired an intellectual awakening in the Indian society.